Hello, and welcome. Today I will be showing you how to turn a Impact Sport hearing system into a hearing system for your Mandalorian helmet. Now the items you will need: a pair of helping hands to help stabilize your wire while working on it, some heat shrink tubes, a pair of scissors, a soldering iron and cleaning holder thingy, some 20-gauge stranded wire, a Dremel and cutting tip, wire cutters, some automatic ones would be nice but you can also use normal ones, rosin flux paste, some tip tinner, a battery box for AA batteries, the actual headset itself, and some solder. Once you have unboxed your headset, you will notice the exterior of it has several features. The two sort of fuzzy bits are where the microphones are located, which we will be extracting and figuring out how to hook everything up. Among the things you notice will be the volume knob. This is also the power on and off switch. Below that is an audio port jack. For our purposes it is useless, so if you decide to keep it or get rid of it is completely up to you. And on the other ear muff, you will spot the battery compartment in which I would recommend putting in the AAA batteries and testing the headset out. We will be replacing the battery area with another one, so don't worry too much about it right now. On to the fun part. This is where we start to open up the headset and reveal its juicy and tender insides ripe for our taking. By using your knife or a blunt object such as a flathead screwdriver, I would recommend a knife since most of the time it has a thinner tip, which would allow you to more easily remove the ear cup. Slide the tip of the knife in between the green plastic and black plastic around the ear cup and push down. This should release the part, granting you access. You might have to try a few areas before finding the one that will release, just as I did in the video. But don't worry, you will find the right spot eventually. I believe in you, pilot. I would recommend keeping the ear cup as a way to pad the area in your helmet where the speaker will go. I did this in my helmet, and it provides a nice little area for my ears to sit comfortably and not feel like I'm going to slip out of where the speakers would be. Now don't forget the other side as well. The next step is to cut away the top padding. Take your scissors and start cutting from the slit of one side to the slit of the other side. But be sure to not cut the large covered wire in there. It's pretty easy to avoid, so just be cautious, pilot. Also, make sure to cut the fabric around the wire so you can actually remove it. Now that you have the husk of the headset completely intact, we must remove the metal straps on the side, holding on the centerpiece. In order to remove them, simply pull on the black tab, or insert a knife or blunt object, such as a flathead screwdriver, between that and the headset, and push or pull, depending on what you're using. Once they are all off, discard them and leave the earpieces behind. To start the work on the inside of the headset, we first need to remove the speakers. So take either a small screwdriver or some cutting snips used in model making. I'm personally using the snips since I don't need the screw holes and because I didn't have a screwdriver to fit the size, but if you only have a screwdriver, then just remove the screws instead. Either way works, it's purely preference. Onto the actual microphones. Removing them is quite simple. Take your knife and break the plastic seal around the fuzzy part, and then using your fingers remove the fuzzy foam. After that, use your finger and push down on the microphone, pushing it out the back side a little. Then you can give a light tug on the wires, and it should pop right out. As for the rubber grommet around the microphone, I would suggest removing it and keeping it, as not only does it provide a sizing guide for the hole you need, but when put into the helmet, it looks like it's meant to be a part of it. Removing the grommet is simple, but does require a little bit of finagling to get it out. Don't stress too much, pilot. You are doing great so far. Okay, now this is probably one of, if not the, hardest parts of the job. You ready? Are you sure? Okay, here it goes. The next thing you need to do is remove the 2 screws holding the board in place. I know, stressful work. Can't believe the ground crew is making you do it yourself, pilot. Now for the useless jack. For this, all you need to do is cut the wires right at the board where they are attached. Then you never have to worry about it again. The side that housed the battery pack is going to require a lot of your brain power. Simply because you have 4 wires going into it, 3 negative and 1 positive. The negative wire colors are brown and black, while the positive is green. So when attaching the wires to the battery pack, remember, green goes to red, and the 2 blacks and the brown go to the black. Not too difficult to remember, but certainly something you need to keep in mind during this project. Though the good thing is, once you get to that step, you can always come back here to know where things go. Now cut the wires as close as you can get to where they would connect to the battery pack. That way you have plenty of room to strip the wire coating off when it's time to extend the wires. All right, time for the fun part, Dremel time. Now I know I say this a lot, but pay attention. You're going to want to cut the big thick wire out of the side with the battery pack, make a big piece, then when you cut it out, you can use the model snipped things to fully cut the wire out so you don't accidentally nick it. But if you don't have the snips, then you can use the Dremel. Just be careful. Then simply rinse and repeat on the other side. But also cut out the power switch and volume switch as well. Again, make it larger than you think it necessary, because then you can just go in and clean it up after. Always better to cut more and clean it up than it is to cut less and screw it up. I'm pretty sure Sun Tzu said that. And boom, just like that, you have all of the electronics removed from the headset and ready for the next phase of our plan, the annihilation of France. Excuse me, my bad. I meant the soldering and extending of wires. All right, pilot, we're getting close to the end game now. Just a few more steps, and this sortie is over. But now grab your helping hands or other holding tool and the heat shrink tubing, and let's get to work. Firstly, you need to cut the wires you're going to need to connect. So take a picture of where everything is connected, or just simply follow the colors. The best way I have found to keep track of everything is to work one at a time. For example, I'll only cut the wires from one speaker and fully connect it before moving on to the next item on the list. Another thing I would recommend would be cutting the wire in the center. That way you are not working directly on the board or device itself, but merely the wiring. As for stripping the wires, the 20 gauge is more than perfect for the automatic wire stripper, while the wires used in the headset could be better suited for a knife cutting the protective coat or a traditional pair of strippers. As for the main part of this project, aka the soldering, I would suggest watching another YouTube video about how to do it. While I do demonstrate how, a quick 2 to 5 minute video will go a long way. Now kick the afterburner on pilot and get that heat shrink tubing on. While in the video I use a lighter, I would suggest using a small heat gun. But the lighter is not a bad option. I just think mine was either completely out of fuel or just didn't work anymore. As for the heat shrink, don't heat it up too much, as you could melt it in areas. While I have found it to be non-noticeable, I would still advise to be cautious and slow when doing it. When cutting the 20-gauge wire, the length of it is entirely up to you. There is no set rule of how long they have to be. Now, I ain't going to bore you with hours of soldering wires over and over again. From here on out, you're flying solo, no WSO or RIO. But I'm sure some wires can't stop you. Now, when working on attaching the battery pack, when you have to combine the 3 negative wires into one, I have some advice. Strip them and then twist them together. Then strip the negative wire from the battery pack and wrap it around it and then solder it all. It works perfectly. Just put some protection on it like you would every other wire. Do be careful when moving the wires that are attached to the parts themselves. Since they were made to be set and never moved, the soldering point may detach, but don't panic. A great way to prevent this is to hot glue around the soldering point. This provides some protection for the wire connections, as demonstrated in the video. In terms of installing the system into your helmet, it is up to you. The main thing is to make sure that the microphones are facing out of the helmet so they can pick up the sound, and that the speakers are put in a place that is comfortable for your hearing. But besides from that, it's up to you. Good luck, pilot. Congratulations, pilot, you did it. Never doubted you for a second. Look at how good of a job you did, and pat yourself on the back. Okay, well, test it first before you pat yourself on the back. Simply turn on the battery pack and the volume switch, then hold the speakers up to your ear. If you hear sound from both, then you have succeeded and gotten your wings. But this does seem like it's the end of the road for us, pilot. We are bingo fuel. But it was a pleasure to fly with you. I'll always be here if you have any questions about this process, so always feel free to ask. I won't judge. I'll also have a list of all the items I bought on Amazon for convenience. Catch you on the flip side, pilot. And may the Force be with you.